Hi, this is Sweet Life, and I'm Natasha, back at it with the review and discussion of The Preacher's Wife. The Preacher's Wife is a 1996 film based on an adaptation of an earlier version of the movie. Basically, you have an angel, Dudley, who's sent down from heaven to help a pastor who is not really struggling with his faith, but rather struggling with his responsibilities, his life, and can use a bit of help. So in this case, the preacher is portrayed by Courtney B. Vance, and he is married to Whitney Houston's character. The two of them have a son together, a cute little boy named Jeremiah. And the angel is portrayed by Denzel Washington. Basically, what you have is a cast of who's who of Black actors and actresses of the 90s. So Henry feels a bit weighed down by his responsibilities and is becoming a bit disconnected from the people around him. He prays for help and assistance, and it comes in the form of Dudley. Henry runs a local church with a pretty committed congregation, a fairly close-knit congregation, but the church isn't exactly financially stable. They don't have a lot of money at their disposal. So when problems crop up, the church doesn't necessarily have the funds to address issues. And so pretty early in the film, the church's boiler goes out, and this is now during the holiday season, so it's cold out. And you have all of these other problems and whatnot going on. There's also expectation for Henry to be like a support system for members of the congregation, to visit members of the church who might be sick, who might be going through difficulties in their lives. And one such person is a young man who's previously been in trouble with the law, but has kind of gotten things together and is now on the straight and narrow, but finds himself in the unfortunate situation of being outside of a store that some other guys robbed. And in a case of mistaken identity, he ends up being arrested. Henry is called upon by the congregation to try to do something, but it's just one more problem on his plate. And so over the course of the film, you can see that Henry's kind of letting things fall by the wayside that he should make a priority. But at the same time, because deep down inside he's a good guy, he's trying to do the right things. It's just that he has so many competing priorities, and it's like every and any problem that anyone has within the church, or even within the church community, there's an expectation for him to step in and provide help and guidance. And so it's he's got all of these different balls in the air, things that are directly related to his role that he's trying to handle and manage. But then it's at the same time in his personal life, he's married, he has his own personal life, there's things to manage there as well with his wife, Julia. And so it's with all of this going on, something has to give. And so he makes a choice to prioritize his responsibilities at the church. But that then ends up having a negative impact on his marriage. He only has so many hours in a day. And it's he has to carve out time for taking care of his responsibilities as a preacher. And sometimes his relationship with his wife falls by the wayside. His son as well, his son Jeremiah, cute little boy, has a friend, Hakeem, who it's unclear what's happened to his parents, but he's living with his grandmother, and it sounds like his grandmother's sick. She's old and can't really take care of him anymore. And so he's going to be placed into foster care. And so you have this thing of Hakeem and Jeremiah are probably about 4 or 5 years old, and Jeremiah has this friend he's losing, his best friend, who's like a brother to him, is going into foster care. And so he's struggling with the loss. And it's to lose a friend, especially around Christmas, makes him incredibly sad. Basically feels alone in her marriage because she's married to this preacher. The two of them are in love, yes, but it's they're not really taking the time to put romance or keep romance in the marriage. Henry's distracted with his responsibilities. She feels lonely. Where obviously she still loves him, she reaches out for him, but she's not really getting back the energy that she needs and wants from him. And you then have Julia's mom, Marguerite, who's in town visiting. She's portrayed by Jennifer Lewis, who actually is perfectly suited for the role. She adds just these little comedic moments that perfectly help to balance out the movie. You also have Loretta Devine, who's Henry's assistant. She provides some comedy as well. And so it's you have these 3 main characters, 4 I would say, including the little boy. And it's the events kind of focus on them. But the secondary characters really add a lot of nuance and help to flesh out and add enjoyment to the movie. Marguerite has these witty remarks, one-liners that are just right on time. And it combines to make a very cute movie. And then it's you have this unexpected chemistry that occurs between Dudley and Julia. Dudley has been put on Earth to help Henry, but Henry's kind of like oblivious and caught up in his own thing, not recognizing just how lonely Julia is. And he ends up pushing her towards Dudley. He uses Dudley as like a stand-in for himself. Dudley is someone who died in his prime, and so imagine this is like young, handsome Denzel Washington, sweet, caring, and whatnot, and he ends up being attracted to Julia. For a period in the movie, it's not really his intention at first, but Henry kind of pushes his husbandly duties, or some of his husbandly duties, onto Dudley, which is spending time with Jeremiah, spending time with Julia, and it results in Dudley and Julia, like things getting kind of warm and cozy between them, remaining chaste, but nonetheless. They have some pretty sweet moments between them, and you realize that there's this chemistry there, there's a mutual attraction there. It's something that Marguerite picks up on. And as the film moves on, it kind of hits a turning point where it's like they have these sweet moments together. It's the two of them, Jeremiah. For example, at one point they go ice skating. Dudley takes Julia ice skating, filling in for Henry once again. Something that Henry should be doing, which is showing up for her and Jeremiah, spending time with them. Because Henry, he's a good guy. He's not out here like being purposefully neglectful of his wife and son. It's just that you can see that he has all of these competing priorities. He's trying to put out all of these fires. You end up feeling sorry for him more than anything else, right? Everyone feels like a human being. They have their good points, they have their bad points. And so it's like they feel like people. I look at it as the mark of a bad book or movie when you have characters that are so flat, one-dimensional, that they're just starkly black and white. There's no nuance to them. So it's like the good guys are just all the way good. The bad guys are just all the way bad with no redeeming qualities or any kind of complexity to them. I like it when when there's a mixture of, let's say, good and imperfect, especially in a movie like this, where even when they're the villain, when they're the bad guy, there's some kind of, they're not just one thing. That works here because you feel for Henry because you can see the strain that he's under, the expectations that he's under, in part trying to live up, live in the shadow of Julia's father, who was also a preacher who previously ran the church. And it makes for like a really sweet movie because all of the people for the most part are nice. They make mistakes at points, but by the end of the film, things kind of get back on track and it makes for a very enjoyable movie because like no one's all the way bad. There's no character that you really end up hating or anything like that. Even the person that should be like the villain, we get some backstory on him. The characters, it's a sweet movie. Around Christmas, I like watching these kinds of movies. I'm not really into like the Hallmark or like Lifetime Channel type holiday movies. I think like they tend to be too cheesy and not very well made. But The Preacher's Wife is part of that collection of holiday movies that I enjoy watching every year. And it's like a sweet movie for kids, but I think there's enough there for adults to watch and enjoy as well, where like it doesn't feel corny or anything like that. It's just like a sweet movie. And something that you can watch time and time again. And I highly recommend it. To add to that, I think one of the high points for me, for lack of a better term, probably the like chase love triangle might be an accurate way of describing the relationship between Henry, Julia, and Dudley. Because it's warm and romantic in a sense, but remains like pretty innocent. But I actually thought the relationship between the two little boys was incredibly sweet. Like, the little boy that plays Jeremiah is so cute. And so it's like, while you have Denzel, Courtney B. Vance, Whitney Houston, actors and actresses that I like, the person in the movie that makes it for me is the little boy Jeremiah. I think he's just such a little cutie patootie. And it's like the whole thing between him and Hakeem and their little friendship, like that actually really makes the movie for me. I've made this point before about Black movies where you kind of have these tropes that are repeated over and over again. And you rarely get to see Black kids in movies just being kids, especially Black boys. And it's like, so often their lives are just humdrum. The world is falling apart. They're on like the pathway to prison. There's all this kind of stuff. Their dads aren't in their lives. It's like just a mess. And certainly like those stories deserve to be told. But it can become a bit tiresome when that's the story for everyone. And so I feel like you need to mix things up every now and then to have a story that steps outside of that tells something different, that provides a different experience, a different perspective. And so it's actually really refreshing here to see this sweet friendship between these two little boys where they're not posing and posturing. They have a friendship where they openly care about each other. Granted, part of it is that they're young enough where they're not self-conscious about this kind of stuff. But all of this comes together to make a really sweet movie. Like, the Jeremiah character, that makes the movie for me. And I think, never mind you have all of like these powerhouse megastars here, like, little boy just warms my heart. And to some degree, I would say like at some points he even steals the movie for me. Like, I just love that little kid. And so with that, I recommend The Preacher's Wife. Thanks for tuning in. To ensure you don't miss any episodes, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, and check out my movie review playlist. Go ahead and click the thumbs up button if you like what you saw, and go ahead and share it on social media.